Holly Cotton here, and I am super excited about our show today. I have Jesuorobo Enobakhare, and he is a police oversight chairperson. And I just thought that it was really important with everything that's going on in the communities right now, everything that's going on in the United States, that we got somebody that could come and give us some real facts and let us know what is going on. So, welcome, Jesuorobo.
Hey, it is a pleasure to be here. I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast. I'm a fan of yours. I've been following you for a number of years. Got a closet full of strong gear, strong squad gear, and so I'm just glad to be able to participate in this
Well,
conversation.
thank you. Thank you. Oh, heart. Love it. Love it. So, one of the things that Jay Swarobo, I see him all the time. He's always on Twitter. He's always fighting people, arguing with people. And I love it. I love it. I can't really do it because, I got to be kind of, I need everybody to kind of like me. But I love supporting people that can get out there and cuss people out in the nicest possible way. So, I wanted to kind of get you on here to talk because obviously if you watch the news, if you look at the internet, if you all I do is open up my news app on my phone, and there's a influx of gun violence, police killings, excessive force by police. So with you being a police oversight chairperson, I really wanted to get your opinion on some of the things that are going on. So first, can you tell us about your background and some of your roles that you're doing?
Okay, sure. So, it's interesting. I don't have like a MPA or anything of that nature. I actually have an IT degree. I have a computer information systems degree. I have attended Tulane University, Grambling State University, and I have my information systems degree from University of Texas at Arlington. And that's kind of my educational background. Career, basically information technology career, and I know that's questioning, well, why are you doing all this in the community if you have a technical degree? And basically, one of the things is that I feel that people should be empowered, especially people that look like us. They should be empowered to control the destiny of their communities. And for a number of decades, my push was getting people registered to vote, making sure that people knew what was on the ballot, and getting out to vote. But then I believe around the time of Tamir Rice and Trayvon Martin, those heartbreaking situations where both of these, um, I can't even say young men, both of these children lost their lives senselessly. Um, I got to the point where I was just tired of being sick and tired of seeing a young black boy or man or child or a black woman or girl being killed by senseless gun violence, whether it's by a police officer or whether it's by someone who feels they have the authority to be a police officer. And so I felt that more needed to be done to protect those who look like me. And so that's the reason why I've started my advocacy, and that's the reason why I became chairman of a police oversight board that, with the help of a number of activists and community stakeholders, was created within the city of Dallas. But this isn't just a city of Dallas thing. You see community groups and leaders joining together throughout the country and creating oversight mechanisms to provide some guidance and some direction over policing from a civilian standpoint.
Right. And that's going to lead us into my first question that I had. So I'm glad that you actually brought that up so that I can piggyback on it. And so I was looking up just some general facts, just some general information. Why is police oversight important? Why is there a need for police reform? And the data that I looked at said that Black men are 21 times more likely as white men to be killed by law enforcement. So, whenever you're talking about police oversight and police reform, can you tell us, one, why that's important, and two, how you guys are actually doing that? How are you holding them accountable?
Okay, so first let's start with that data point about black men being 21 times as likely as white men to be killed by law enforcement. A lot of that is due to implicit bias. That usually causes a police officer to use more aggressive force against a black person than a white one. Implicit bias is a form of bias that occurs automatically and unintentionally, but nevertheless, it affects judgment, decisions, and behaviors. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of such biases as black men being more prone to criminality, or a bias that was in the medical field, that black women being able to endure more pain. So these biases cause someone who may be a police officer who doesn't live around black people, who happens to have a beat where they are policing a large number of black people in a black community, and the for whatever reason they feel that aggressive force is necessary, and you always hear this response of "I fear it for my life." I fear. Okay, policing is a scary job. If you are so fearful, then why did you sign up? The job of a police officer is to protect and serve. And we've seen many times when there's a white man with a AK-47 and shot up a movie theater, and they're able to get him to surrender peacefully. Well, it takes time to get someone to surrender. That takes negotiation. That takes someone coaxing them down. It takes patience. It seems like when it comes to a black person, they can have a handgun or no gun at all, which in many of these instances, no gun. Tamir Rice had a toy gun in his hand. He was 12 years old. And a police officer shot him within seconds of seeing it. But yet these white men that are walking around with these military grade weapons, you know, they're able to get taken in. They assess the situation and they wait. They try to de-escalate. There was no de-escalation that's done within the seconds that it took for them to shoot Tamir Rice. And there was no de-escalation needed because of the fact he had a toy gun. But that's the problem, is that I'll have to say grace. A white police officer may see this white person as a brother or kin or someone that they can identify with, and they see the humanity in them. And as a result of that, they try not to use lethal force. But for whatever reason, when it comes to a black suspect, that grace a lot of times in just these specific instances, like George Floyd, Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, for whatever reason, grace was not available for those young men, and correction for those children. And that's what's needed. One, for black children to be seen as black children, even by the police. And two, for them to be given the same grace and humanity and as they give our white counterparts.
Right. And one of the things that I wanted to say, or I wanted to interject in what you were saying too, for anyone that's watching, because I know everyone's going to be like, "Oh, well, what about Tyree Nichols? You guys are forgetting that those were black officers that did that." So yes, that was more of a least common instance. But when we're talking about the police oversight, we're talking about all the police officers, whatever color they are. We're just giving some I guess just some data, and like you said, this is more of a common instance where it is the white cop with the black youth that whatever reason they have the bias, they think they're looking for trouble, whatever it is. So, but we're for the episode, we talking about all the cops. We talking about everybody. So
Well, just to be clear, implicit bias also impacts officers that are not white, and there are plenty of black people who look at other black people as also being prone to violence as well. So that because the training that takes place is there's not a separate white and black police training. They all get the same training depending on what state they're in and what police academy they're in. So they're all trained the same way, trained to react the same way. And so for those who found the Tyree Nichols situation, alarming, well, those are black officers and this, that, and other, well, that's their training. That's the culture of that police department. And that culture doesn't care whether you're black or white.
Right. And I'll tell you a story. Not, I'll give you a synopsis. I won't go into the whole story, but there was a situation with my son, and so he literally was going through our side gate, which faces the sidewalk, and he was going through the side gate, and the police officer, they were like coming down the street, and they stopped, and so I was standing outside, and and I'm like you, so I'm like, can I help you? Like, what the heck you doing? Why are you coming down here acting crazy? And he was like, so
Right.
they were like looking for my son, or they wanted to talk to him. And so I was like, well, he's inside, I'll get him or whatever. So he wound up coming out, and it was a black officer. So he came outside, he was talking to the officer, and so they were like, oh, okay, well, we didn't know because we saw you were going in that side gate. We thought you were like the person that we're looking for, that was like jumping the fence to go in somebody's yard or something like that. And we're like, what? And the black officer told my son, he was like, if your mom wasn't out here, you would have been, my first thing would have been to taser you, because you just look suspicious going through the gate. And I was like, well, I think that's kind of crappy, because this is our house, and that's my side gate. That's my sidewalk. So because you see my son coming through a side gate, he looks suspicious. But it was, I mean, and that was the black officer, and that's what he said. He was like, you'd have been tased if your mom wasn't out here.
I heard a story about a similar story. A gentleman was telling me about an experience he had probably a decade ago in Washington, D.C., where he was with some of his friends and got stopped by police. And there happened to be, it was a white officer and a black officer. And the white officer went easy on him. The guy was speeding and looked like he may have been drinking, but the white officer went easy on him. And the white officer walked away. The black officer said, the only reason why you didn't get knocked upside your head is because of the fact that that white police officer saved you. And so, sometimes it's our own that are the worst.
All I see is that clip of Boys in the Hood. When that little tear was coming, I'm like, that's all I see every time. I'm just like, interesting, interesting. But I'm gonna keep it politically correct so we can talk about some real topics. We already know what's going on. We watch the news. So what I really wanted to do, because here in Houston, we just had a
Mhm.
case, and it was a Hispanic man, and he was outside with an assault rifle, and his neighbor came out. They had a baby that was outside. If you watch the news, it was literally like, I don't know, 50, this, I think it's like 20 miles, or I don't know, whatever the city was. I think it's Cleveland, actually. So I think that's like 50 miles from Houston. But anyway, it's a suburb of
Mhm. Mhm.
Houston, and the Hispanic guy went in and shot five and killed five people in the
Mm.
trailer. He went in, he shot a 8-year-old, the two moms, the kids, because they went in, because they went outside and asked him to stop shooting his rifle in the, in the yard. And it's like, okay, I would do that also. Like, hey, it's 11 o'clock, my kid's trying to sleep. Why are you shooting a rifle, even if we're in the country? And we both grew up in the country, so we know how it is. But
Right.
back then, we went out to like the fields and did it. It wasn't in our subdivisions where we were shooting. I remember my dad teaching me, and it was like the swamp. We drove for 45 minutes to get on that little oyster shell road where he had the cans out and taught me how to shoot the BB gun. So it's different. This is like we're talking about in real life, in real people's neighborhoods, and it just seems like every time I
Mhm.
open my news app, someone's getting killed, something is going on. It's all of this with gun violence. So can you tell us, I know you are doing a lot of stuff with that. You have an opinion about a lot of stuff with the gun reform. Are there any things that you know of that you're working on, that you're working with the police on, anything like that when it's regarding gun reform?
Well, so remember, I believe it was the last legislative session, or maybe it was a special session in Texas where they decided to make open carry legal, where you no longer had to go and get a permit in order to carry a concealed gun. You could just walk around with a gun. And I think they just passed it in Florida and in Georgia, I believe. It's already legal in Oklahoma and a number of other states. And so basically now you can just walk around with a gun and the police can't stop you unless you are committing a crime while you have that gun. And but I just want to talk about some statistics real quick because people are quick to talk about certain states that have stricter gun requirements. Well, California, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York have some of the strictest gun laws. And I did say Illinois, so we're going to park that right there. Let me talk about the states with the least strict gun laws: Oklahoma, Texas, North Dakota, South Carolina, South Dakota, West Virginia, Wyoming, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, and Arizona. Those states have some of the least strict gun laws. But remember, I said about Illinois having the strictest gun laws, but yet there's a lot of gun violence in
I was about to say
Chicago.
Southside Chicago, right?
Well, Missouri is right next door to Chicago, to Illinois. Remember, I mentioned Missouri is one of the states with lax gun laws. So all a person has to do is go to Missouri, buy a gun, and bring it back to Illinois. That's how most of the guns are getting into Illinois. And that's how a lot of the crime is taking place in Chicago from guns coming in from other states. So you could have a state that has strict gun laws, but if the state surrounding you don't, you're still going to have some of those same problems. And that's why there needs to be more of a national standard on guns. One, you know, they keep saying that there are too many guns in circulation, and we're not going to be able to take the guns from anyone, and it's people's right and this and another. But the longer they wait, the more guns actually get out into the public. Meaning that I think there may be 4 guns to every person in the United States now. Now, not every person in the United States owns a gun, but there are enough guns owned by the people who own them to give everyone in the United States at least 4 guns. And so this is something that's continuing to multiply. And for whatever reason, when you have a majority of American citizens that want gun rights, they want gun laws, they want gun control laws, they want national background checks, they want age restrictions, they want to stop the sale of military grade guns to civilians, but yet our government won't act. Congress won't act on it. State legislatures won't act on it, and that's a problem. So one of the things, there was some legislation in a number of states that wanted to raise the age for those attempting to buy assault rifles. Legislation that would allow for a national database to track if someone is buying large volumes of bullets. Also, just a national database to track who buys guns. The problem is that And I don't want to be political either, but the problem is that in many of the state legislatures around the country and in Congress, the majority of the members, for whatever reason, want status quo to remain, meaning that they want to blame mental health. They want to blame the person didn't have two parents in their household. They want to blame everything but the fact that the gun is the thing that's killing the people. They even some even say, well, what if he didn't have guns? What if he only had knives? If he had knives, he'd still be killing folks. Yeah, but if you have a knife, you're not gonna be able to kill.
A whole movie
You're not gonna be
theater.
able to stab a whole bunch of people. Once you stab one or two people, they're gonna be on you.
Right.
With a gun, with a magazine that has 10 bullets in it, and all you gotta do is press the trigger 10 times, you've killed 10 people in a matter of seconds.
And
And
that's not even
you
talking
would
about
think
the
that
assault rifles. Like,
no, you're not even talking about the assault rifles. And you would think that once when the issue was with just black on black violence, you know, you would think that when it moved from that to white children in schools, predominantly white areas being shot and killed, you would think that at that point people would act, but no, they didn't even act then. And so for me, one thing that government is supposed to be designed to do is to protect children, women, families, those that can't protect themselves. That's what government is supposed to be designed for. But for whatever reason, our governments have failed us because of the fact that they feel as though they are beholden to the gun manufacturers. Do you know that if your family is killed by a shooter, you can't even sue the gun manufacturer? You know that is where we are in this country, and the only way that we're going to be able to solve this issue is that we all have to be more informed, and we have to hold our elected officials accountable. I
that
think that
part.
social media is a great tool. This is an awesome tool, but I think that what has happened is that far too often we just take our outrage to social media, and that's where it dies. We don't actually call our state rep. We don't call our congressmen, our senators. Which we should do. We should hold them accountable. We should demand that they pass laws that protect us from gun violence, that protect children from gun violence, that protect our schools from gun violence. And they can do that, but they have to hear it from a majority of their voting
Hmm.
base. Meaning that if one person is complaining, they aren't going to hear it. But you know what? If it takes 20,000 people to elect someone into a state rep's office and 15,000 are saying we need gun reform, guess what's going to happen?
Right.
That's one person that's going to vote for gun reform. So take that and multiply that by a majority vote in a state legislature, by a majority vote in both houses of Congress. And guess what? You've just you've just passed gun laws that will protect children, families, innocents. They will keep guns out of the hands of those that are suffering from mental illness. And most importantly, keep guns out of the hands of those who are prone to violence because of the fact that they're trying to scapegoat people who are suffering from mental challenges. And the overwhelming majority of people dealing with mental or emotional challenges aren't even thinking about trying to kill anyone. You know, sometimes we got to call it what it is. Some of these people that have guns that bought them with the intent of killing, which in a lot of these modern day scenarios, the guns were bought legally.
Especially the
The
school
school,
shootings. Like, they literally bought the gun to go
mhm.
and shoot up a school. And everyone
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that is a victim of that. When they start researching it, that's exactly what they say. Oh, well, they bought a gun online 2 days ago, or they just bought a gun 7 days ago, and now they went and shot up a school. So yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, especially the assault rifle sales, there's got to be
Yeah.
some type of regulation. And I also wanted to piggyback on what you were saying about the initial anger and the upsetness and the rage that everyone feels. And it's so true. That's so accurate that you said that, because that's exactly what happens. Someone goes,
Mm-hmm.
shoots up a school, like just Uvalde. I mean, the guy went in there and shot all the little babies, and they're tear the school down, and no, they're never going to let another kid go in that school, and all of this. Great. Okay. Everyone's upset. All the parents are still hurting because their kid is gone. They'll never see their baby again. All of this happened. Oh, okay, well, the bad guy is dead. And it's that rage for a certain period of time. Then we have the election, and you guys vote for the same people with no regulation, no changes, no nothing. So it's so true, exactly what you said. That is the most accurate description of it. Everyone is internet sad. Everyone is social media rage. No, it has social media rage. No one is willing to keep continuing to go. And then once it's time for the election, oh, now the politicians, oh, let's hit on these topics. Let's talk about these hot spots. But then again, after a year goes by, there's no regulation changes, there's no nothing. So I definitely think that was very accurate with the way that you described it. It's just the social media anger, and then it just fizzles out, but no changes are being made.
Yeah, and they're counting on it, meaning that you see, different governors across the state and different elected officials, and they're quick to offer their thoughts and prayers, and let's not politicize this and all of that garbage. But they know that at some point attention is going to turn elsewhere, and I've seen it so many times where you see the school shooting, people are outraged and upset, and they are calling for people's resignations, and then you find out that Beyonce has a new concert that's coming out, and next thing you know, that's the conversation now. And now we're talking about tickets. Then another shooting, and so the children that were in Columbine, they're all adults now. You know, you and I grew up small town in Louisiana. There wasn't a school shooting. I have never experienced a school shooting. I can say that.
Me either.
I'm pretty sure you can say the
Hmm.
same thing. You know, over the next decade, there are going to be more adults that have been victims of school shootings or were at a school when the shooting happened. And it's sad that, this is where we are in supposedly one of the most advanced countries in this nation, but yet we have more gun violence than some of the war torn countries. And it seems as though the only way it's gonna stop is for us to vote out the lawmakers that refuse to do something. That's the only thing that's going to allow change to happen. And I'm not saying that you got to vote a particular political party, or I'm not saying it at all. What I'm saying is that there are people. If you look at the surveys and the polls, there are people on all sides that feel that something needs to be done. And so, you know what? If there are people that feel that way, then there are people running for office that feel that way as well. And so we need to seek those people out and ensure that those people are
Yeah.
elected.
Well,
But we
hang on,
also
Jesuorobo. We're gonna come back to that when it gets close to the politics, because close to election time, because mofos
yeah,
tend to forget these tools. So don't worry, we will be back, and we're gonna tell y'all what to vote for when it's time to vote. When it's time to vote,
we
because
definitely
they're like, oh, that's great. No, 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 we don't worry, we'll be back when it's close to the election time. But yeah, exactly. That's why we always say in the local elections is what you need to be focusing on as well. But anyway, we in Texas, all these states are completely different. But I digress. We'll be back next year to talk about it. Uh so the last question I wanted to ask you was, I know with you doing the police oversight now and being really part of that, your advocacy, all of these things that you're doing for the community, and I know you work closely with one particular police department, but you're definitely getting data from other cities, other states, things like that. So, do you find that there is a trend with other communities that align with the same issues that you're having with your uh, police oversight organization? Or do you feel that there are certain risk factors, or are you seeing there's trends? Are there things that we can know that we maybe don't even, that we aren't privy to, that you see that these are the trends, maybe these kind of cities, maybe this is the population? So are you seeing any of this data with trends of risk groups and things that are happening behind the scenes?
Well, let's talk about we the risk group is, you see, if you look at the profile of some of the um, black men and women who have been killed by the police. Like if you look at the profile of George Floyd, Philando Castile, uh, Mike Brown. If you look at the profile of them, you'll see some commonalities with them. They tend to have been less educated. They tend to live in areas that are probably not as affluent. Uh, they live more in black communities, and these officers that killed them probably would not have reacted that same way if they would have been in a more affluent white community. So that's one thing. Another is, I want to kind of clear up the misconception, um, because when we're pushing for police oversight, those that are pushing against it think that we're about, we're the Gestapo, we're the gotcha people trying to get bad cops. Well, that's really not what oversight is about. When it comes to crooked police officers, when it comes to police officers that should not be police officers, that is the job of the police department to ensure that it does not hire nor continue to employ people who should not be police officers. So let's make that perfectly clear. Oversight is more to ensure that civilians have a means to provide feedback on how their communities are being policed. And in a lot of conversations that I have with the community, especially when we're talking about members of areas that are heavily black or brown, they feel as though their communities are not policed enough. Um, but one of the things is that it's for the communities to be able to provide feedback on how they want their communities policed. It also means for civilians to file official complaints regarding negative encounters with police officers. And now this doesn't include criminal acts, because if it's a criminal act, it has to be reported to the police for an arrest to be made. But oversight also makes policy recommendations to improve policing in cities. But there is one huge thing, the obstacle that is a barrier to many, is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a legal principle that grants government officials performing discretionary functions immunity from civil suits unless the plaintiff shows that the official violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. Meaning that if they clearly violated your civil rights, meaning, say for instance, and this is a real life example, a police officer stops you under suspicion of drunken driving. They arrest you. You have to put this breathalyzer in your car while you're waiting for trial and all this, that, and other. And then when your court case comes up, they find out that you really weren't drunk, and the officer doesn't even show up to testify. Well, guess what? You're not going to be able to sue that officer, because they'll just say, well, he just made an accident, he felt at the time that you were driving under the influence and he acted appropriately. Now, in this example I gave you, someone was wrongly arrested for drunk driving. They had to pay to put a breathalyzer in their car, and it takes months for your court date to
Or
come up.
could be
So
years.
or years, yes, years. And so, but you can't sue them because of the fact that they have qualified immunity protecting them. So this is something that, when it comes to policing, qualified immunity is one of the biggest issues that prevents people from getting justice. And what it's going to take is for state legislatures to have the courage to go against police unions, police unions are probably one of the most powerful political party in this nation. It's going to take that level of courage to remove qualified immunity. And it also, police officers are trained in Texas one way. They may be trained in Oklahoma a different way, in Louisiana a different way. There needs to be some type of national standard for policing, so that a police officer in California is trained the same way that a police officer is trained in Texas, and the same way the police officer is trained in New York. There needs to be some national standards set, and ways to hold municipal bodies, and this could be a police department or a sheriff's department or marshal's department, whatever. They need to be held to those standards. And until those things happen, we're just kind of putting band-aids on gashing wounds. And now one thing I will say is there are a number of police chiefs that do believe in restorative justice. They understand the inequity of policing outcomes, and they're pushing to bring that equity that's necessary and needed. But I can't say how many of those chiefs are employed right now. We can't count on just waiting for that right chief to come in and make changes. We have to make changes now.
Right.
You know, we have to ensure that there is no other child that's killed by the police officers for playing with a toy gun, or walking around with a hoodie
Right.
on, or just scared and running away. Meaning, even running away from a police officer, if you're unarmed, that should not be a life or death proposition. It should not.
Right.
And so there has to be some type of national standards of policing to bring this back into scope of what policing should be in our communities.
Right. And like as you're talking, I swear the whole time you're talking, all I can do is just hear different news segments about things that officers have done, like the lady who thought she pulled out her taser, but she actually pulled out the gun and shot the guy and killed him. Or, like I'm just hearing I'm just visualizing all these scenarios of these things that police officers have done that are obviously we think are insane, and they're getting away with it, they're moving on with it. And also, when you said that about it being like one of the biggest organizations, all I can think of is those mobster movies where it's always the corrupt cops and they're stick together and the detectives in this. But you're right, like everyone is always talking about the mobsters and the cartel. I got bad news for you guys, we got a cartel here too, and and it's called the police department, because they stick up for each other, they hide each other's dirty laundry, the skeletons in the closet. I mean, it is a huge union, and they're policed by themselves. So that oversight is so important, to have people come in that are not affiliated with the police department, that can come in and say, wait a minute, this is what you guys are doing. Wait a minute, you guys are training on this or not training on that. So just to reiterate, why that's a valuable thing that you guys are doing. So, last thing I wanted to ask you about is I know usually when I have a guest and they have their own business or their project or something like that, I'm always like, okay, so tell us about any future projects and how people can support you. So I know that you kind of are in this weird predicament because technically this isn't like your business. It's kind of like
Right.
you doing this huge job and you're overseeing this and you kind of fell into this. But do you have any projects or anything that's coming up, anything you're lobbying on, anything that you're trying to do while this session is still in place right now? Do you have anything that you're working on?
Well, right now I'm working on a project, and this is probably more long scale, but I am working on a project that gives people the tools to hold elected officials accountable. Meaning, a lot of times people want to act, but they just don't know what to do. And it gets overwhelming when you go to the legislative website and you're trying to click all these links and answer all these questions. But just teaching people the tools of how to show up for their communities, how to show up for their families, and how to stay engaged and push their elected officials to make decisions that are for the betterment of their communities, and how people can come together as a community, as a group of individuals, because there's always power in numbers. And so it's teaching people how to come together, how to show up, how to be engaged and stay engaged and push elected officials to the finish line of whatever's to the betterment of their communities.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, hey, I can't wait for you to do that. Let me be a part of it. I like to invest in up.
Definitely,
I like to.
definitely. I'll need you. I'll need you for the
Yeah, yeah,
publicity
yeah. Let
piece.
me do, yeah, let me be the spokesperson.
Mhm.
So Jesuorobo, can you tell us your Instagram, your social media handles, how people can get in touch with you, all of that great stuff?
Yes, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Jesuorobo, at Jesuorobo. And if you go to my Twitter, I also have a link to my Instagram. My Instagram is a little bit longer. It's But if you type in at Jesuorobo underscore Enobakhare, you'll find my smiling face. And so, yeah, so Twitter, Instagram are the best ways to contact me. If they would like to send me an email, they have some questions about what we talked about, they can send me an email at Jesuorobo at yahoo.com.
Okay, got it. And I will also have clickable links in the podcast notes. A lot of times people are driving or they're listening while they're doing cardio, whatever, and they don't have time to look. No worries, because that was a lot of letters. I know it's a lot of letters in his name. So you're gonna get confused. So
Yeah.
don't worry for you. We will have clickable links for all of that information. So, do you have anything that you want to end with? Do you have a passion statement? Do you have a power to change statement? Anything you want to leave with the listeners?
Well, first of all, Holly, I just want to thank you for, again, giving me this opportunity to be on your podcast. And if I could lead with anything, it would be you have the power to change your communities, but only you can change your communities. You can't rely on someone else. And when it comes to those in elected office, you can't rely on someone who doesn't care about you to do anything for you. So therefore, you need to ensure that those that are governing you care about you in the direction of your community.
Oh, that's powerful. So you know what he said? He said they don't give a f about you. No. In the most politically correct way. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that is Jesuorobo Enobakhare. You guys see that? See that? And I have a very strong Louisiana accent. So if I can say Jesuorobo, so can you. So it was so nice to have this conversation with you. And I'm serious. We're all going to have, when it gets close to election again, we need to have another team meetings because we need you to give us some guidance on who we need to elect or who, not who we need to elect, but how we need to choose those constituents that we choose to elect.
Hey, I'm with you on it. Just let me know where you need me to show up. I have the facts, figures. We'll have a plan together.
We got the list. Okay. Thank you. All right, you guys, make sure you stream all the episodes of Beyond the Fit so you don't miss any of our important information. Okay, great. Don't hang up.